Hello all, welcome to auratrainings.com. In this session, we'll discuss about database subqueries. So far, we learned about how do we write a queries, and we also learned about how do we perform joins. Now we'll understand how do we write a query inside another query, nothing but a subquery. Okay, and it's also called as a inner query. Let's get into our target. So in this particular session, we'll try to learn about all these particular functionalities, like when do we use subqueries, what are the functionalities it can achieve, and how do we write a single row or multiple row subqueries, and scalar subqueries, usage of exists clause, usage of end clause, usage of case clause. Okay, there are different set of samples we'll come across using these set of samples. Let's get in the next slide. Okay, so how do we write a subquery, right? So if you observe the syntax directly, so in the subquery generally, like what happens is, we know that like a where condition, we use it for the purpose of filtering rows, and you can mention a where condition followed by a particular query there. Okay, so when you write a query inside another query, nothing but here if you observe, right, so we have this particular child query which is written inside the parent query, right? This is nothing but a subquery. Of course, we have a different set of operators we can use it. We'll try to understand more by like considering some set of samples. Okay, so this particular inner query, generally we call it as inner query or subquery concept. Okay, so what are the guidelines for using subqueries? When do we use it? And like what are the set of conditions we have to follow when you're dealing with subqueries, right? So the basic thing is, like when you're dealing with subqueries, make sure that you enclose the subquery in parentheses. And we can also generally like you use subqueries for the purpose of performing top analysis, nothing but finding out the top end rows, like finding out the top five employees, like top five salaried employees, or like finding out like um, the set of departments which are having the larger number of employees, or let us say the set of suppliers who are like who has a larger number of purchase orders in the ERP system. A lot number of ways we can like use top end analysis for that. And also subqueries, like as we discussed, we can use it for the multiple row subqueries or single row subqueries. So single row subquery is nothing but like in the where clause you mention is equal to conditions, and but multi-row subqueries you mention an in clause or any clause or all clause, right? We'll understand through samples, like we'll discuss in the next couple of slides. Okay, so here if you observe the sample, so what we mentioned in the first one is like it's nothing but like as I mentioned, it's a single row, right? A single row subquery where you have a is equal to condition. If at all, if you have anything other than these particular normal mathematical operator, like if you have in any and all, you can call it as multiple row subqueries. Okay, so here if you observe the first query, what we are trying to do is you're trying to fetch the employee. Okay, we are trying to fetch all the employees where salary is equal to, and in the subquery here what we mentioned, we are trying to find out the minimum salary in the employee table, nothing but all the employees whose salary is minimum. We are trying to get all those particular employees. So that's what we are trying to get from the first sample, right? So let's try to do this so then we can get some clarity. 1 minute. Yeah, let me remove this. Yeah, so select star from our employees, right? Now let's say I just want to fetch e dot first name, e dot last name, e dot employee ID. So I'll try to follow the same logic. Employee ID, okay, e dot salary. So this will fetch all the salaries, right? This will fetch all the employees. But now what we want to do is we just want to fetch out all those employees whose salary is equivalent to the minimum salary in the employee table. Okay, whose salary is equal to the minimum salary in the employee table. Okay, now how do we do it? Where, okay, 1 is equal to 1. Okay, yeah, before proceeding further, I just want to highlight one more important condition which we generally follow. So here, if you observe, as per the mathematics or any programming language, is 1 equal to 1 is a true or a false? 1 is equal to 1 is a true condition, right? So in the where condition, let's say I'll just execute without this where clause and observe how many rows I got it. I got 108. Let's try to execute the same query by enabling this where condition and see the result. You'll not find any difference. You'll get exactly 108 rows. So what we're trying to do is, if you observe most of the Oracle standard queries, you have this kind of condition. Or ideally, in generally, like we also follow this particular tradition of mentioning 1 is equal to 1. I'm even not sure why we mention, but what I understand is it's more of a readability purpose we mention. Okay, But why only one is equal to 1? Why can't I mention 11 is equal to 11? Yes, still it works. There is no harm in that. Okay. Or let us see, if I mention 1 is equal to 0, what will happen? It will not work because 1 is equal to 0 is a false condition. So obviously the total logic, I mean, the total set of records fails. That's why you'll not get the criteria stuff. I mean, you'll not get the resultant. But here, if you observe carefully, like, first of all, how this particular condition is related to our data, we know that like from, if you observe till this part, like till this part, we are fetching all the employees. Then we are applying a particular condition on the total records, but the value or columns which I mentioned in the where clause, they are nowhere related to the data which is written which is written from the from clause. But still, what is happening is it's kind of like it's kind of a particular condition, even though there is no column, it is used from the above table. As the total where clause is failing, it is assuming that the total block is also failing. So it is considering that the total where condition itself is failed. So none of the rows are getting satisfied with this condition. That's why it is considering no rows should be provided in the output. That's the logic. Okay. Now, so you can mention this one or not. There is no mandatory stuff. Okay. Anyway, I'm just going with this 1 is equal to 1 for now. So what we want to do, we just want to fetch out all the employees, nothing but e dot salary, where min of salary from employees, right? E dot salary is equal to min of salary, right? So there is only one employee and the minimum salary was only one. Okay. So here, if you observe, yeah. Okay. So there is only one. The minimum salary in this employees table is one. That's why we were getting only one particular record. So this is how we can make use of this particular is equal to condition. Similarly, like here, if you observe, if you want to go with a multi-row subquery, and here what we are trying to do is, if you observe this inner query, so always when you try to analyze the subquery, when you try to analyze a query which is written in this particular fashion, get inside. First of all, read the inside query rather than the first query. Okay, read the child query. In the child query, what we are trying to do, we are trying to fetch the salary of the employee whose job is clerk. Okay, and then what we are trying to do, and in the above table, we are trying to fetch all the employees where the salary is less than, it is less than any salary of the clerk, less than any salary, right? So here, if you observe, less than any means maximum value in the list. Okay, now let us say, assume that like from this particular outer query. Okay, assume that we get the maximum value as 100. And so here what we are trying to do, where salary is less than 100, so we are trying to fetch all those particular list of values whose salary is less than 100 from this. So only thing you have to understand is, when you are trying to use this kind of any clause, trying to understand that, first of all, get the maximum value, and that we are comparing with the parent one. Less than means like we are trying to fetch out all those particular. So we are just trying to fetch out like the same thing, right? The mathematical condition, salary is less than 100 kind of thing, right? Greater than any means greater than any, like in the same thing, like here, if you observe, you're trying in this one, you'll get the minimum one and trying to find out all those whose value is greater than the value which you got from the less. That's how we can deal with the less than any or greater than any. Now this top and analysis is one of the very important one which we use most of the times. Even in the interviews also, they always ask this particular one. So I'm not sure about like what could be the new functionality which is available in the latest database version. They should be having other kind of functionalities which are available, but this is one of the oldest technique of using, trying to find out the top end query. So using this one, what we can do is, now let us say, assume that we want to write a query. We just want to write a query, write a query to display top 10 salaried employees. Okay, I just want to fetch out all those employees who are getting the highest salaries, but I just want to retrieve the top 10 salaried employees. Top n queries we generate, top n query we call it as. So select start from employees, which will get all the details. Now order by salary, descending, nothing but top salaried employees, right? Top salaried employees. But I just want to fetch only 10 employees. So you can't mention the where condition here, because if you mention the where condition, what will happen? The where clause will be applied first, then order by salary will be applied. So automatically, like what we are expecting will be a failure one, right? That's why first of all, order by salary, Now this particular query is retrieving all, it is retrieving all the 108 rows, but we, out of this 108 rows, we just want to fetch only this till 10 rows, right? What we can do, you can simply mention select star from, okay, select star from where row num less than 11. That's it. So it will fetch you those set of records. Okay, so don't mention is equal to, when you mention is equal to, it will not work. If you mention is equal to 10, it will not work, but it will work only when you mention is equal to 1. Is equal to 1, it will fetch the first record from the inner query, but when you mention any other value with is equal to, it will not work. Okay, so that's why you just mention less than 11 so that it will fetch the 10 records. Okay, now, so this similar logic, next one, yeah. So this, if you observe carefully, like in the last session also we discussed about this null value. So we know that first of all, when you're trying to compare null value with any other value, obviously total query will fail. That is why we have to be very careful when you're having any comparison condition or any conditional logic when you're applying with null. We have to be very much careful. Always apply the appropriate NVL clauses wherever required. So in this particular query, what we're trying to do is we are trying to fetch out all those employee. Okay, so who are not managers, right? That's what we are trying to do it. So we are just getting all the employees. So always, first of all, read the inside query. What you're trying to get here, we are trying to get select the managers, right? So here we are trying to get all the managers, and then we are applying the not in clause, nothing but we are trying to fetch all the employees who are not managers. That's what we are trying to get from this particular query. Okay, and yeah, multiple column subqueries. Yeah, so multiple column subquery is nothing but you have two options here. There are, one is pairwise comparison, another one is non-pairwise comparison. So what we can do is we can mention multiple columns in the where clause. That's what we call it as multiple column subqueries. This particular kind of sample, I mean this type of query, it is very rarely used. So far I never used in the real time. So just for information purpose. Okay, so how do we do it? We just need to mention in the where clause, just mention the appropriate set of columns, and similarly in the subquery also you have to mention the same number of columns. Okay, that's how we can deal with the multiple column subquery, and which is called a pairwise subquery, pairwise comparison, non-pairwise comparison. So here if you observe similar one, but we are just having subqueries multiple times, like for each particular column condition. And yeah, so scalar subquery expression here, if you observe, this is one of the very interesting one. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to apply a select query inside a case condition. So this is very rarely used, but this is one of the very interesting one where we can make use of a select query inside a case condition. Okay, so let's try to do that. So let's see, I'll try to make use of this particular information which we already have it. Now what we want to do is we just want to make use of a query for the case logic. Okay, so now what I want to do is, so I just want to fetch out, so wherever the department ID is equal to 100, I just want to print the department name, else I don't want to print their department name. Okay, so now, so of course, like we can achieve there are a number of ways, but we just want to make use of this particular case condition. Okay, so I'll just say case when e dot department ID is equal to 100. Okay, then select d dot department underscore name from departments d, where d dot department ID is equal to d dot department ID. Of course, I can mention the direct condition because anyway we are trying to evaluate this only for the one department, right? So now, so this is my case, right? I can mention appropriate way so that I'll not have any confusion. Case when, okay, then, and okay, DPD case. I just mentioned like this. Let's see what will happen. So now here, if you observe carefully, so we are getting the value only where the department is finance, but remaining places just printing null, right? Okay. So this is how we can apply. This is how we can make use of a select clause inside a case condition also. Okay. This is just one of the sample, and based on the requirement, you can try to validate this logic. Now, correlated subquery, this is one of the very interesting one. So in the correlated subquery, what exactly we are trying to do is we are trying to see generally what happens is when you are having a subquery, if the subquery is not using any of your parent column values, they are not correlated. But if your subquery is using any of the column in the child query, then it is called correlated subquery, and that will get evaluated for every row of the parents. Okay, that's a concept of correlated subquery. Here, if you observe in this particular sample, so here if you observe, if you read the child, you may not get total clarity because so far I've been telling that you have to read the child first, then the parent. But of course, you'll get partial information here if you observe. Select average salary from the employees, right? So we're trying to fetch out, we're trying to get the average salary from a particular employee table where E dot department is equal to D dot department number. So here if you observe from the above query what we have written, so we are trying to fetch out all the employees, okay, whose salary is greater than average salary from that specific department. Okay, so this seems a quite confusion query, but the concept what we are trying to do is for each particular parent query, the child query will get executed. So that's a concept of correlated subquery. Okay. Yeah, another interesting operator, exist operator, and this is almost similar to your in clause, but this is also used and preferable by many of the developers. Okay, not sure what is the reason, but of course they prefer to use this particular logic. So the only difference between the in clause and this one is in the in clause you just mention appropriate column value, but in the exist operator you just mention it just evaluates based on the true condition. Okay, so here if you observe in this one, right, in this particular sample, what we're trying to do is where, yeah, if you observe this particular sample using in clause, what we're trying to do is we're trying to fetch all the employees who are managers, right? So where employee in, select manager from EMP. So nothing but is trying to fetch all the employees who are managers. Similarly, here if you observe what we have mentioned, select all the employee details where exists, select one from EMP where MGR is equal to E dot EMP number. So here if you observe, why did we mention one? So it is nothing but where exists. So whenever it returns any record, this is nothing but it becomes true, and nothing but the where condition for that particular employee is true, and that employee record will be written in the output. So that's the concept of exist operator. Okay, so correlated updated. So here if you observe carefully, like we know that like you can mention update. For update syntax, what we do, update table name, set column is equal to column value. So in the set column is equal to column value, here what we're trying to do is we're trying to update the information of one table based on the query which you're considering. That is nothing but correlated update. Okay, so here if you observe the example in this one, update emp, okay, you're trying to fetch update emp e, set department name is equal to select d name from department where e dot department number is equal to d dot department number. Okay, so nothing but we're trying to fetch out, we are just trying to set the value based on some particular select condition. Yeah, so with clause is one of the very interesting one, and this is preferably used when you want to deal with complex queries. Okay, rather than using PL SQL logic to perform those things, you can within the SQL level you can achieve this one. And maybe if you are from the BI publisher, Oracle BI publisher background, this is one of the predominantly used logic, because in the Oracle Cloud BI reports there is no PL SQL logic available. I mean to say we don't have direct access to the PL SQL package creation. So what we do is most of the times we write with clause queries to achieve the desired functionality. Okay, so let's try to get a sample, then we can easily understand. Okay, I'll show you a couple of samples, then we can try to understand that first of all. Yeah, so here if you observe this simple one first, so with emp details as select star from emp. So the concept here is this emp tables, so just consider this as a placeholder for the result of a query, nothing but the select star from emp, all the rows which are available in this particular query result will get stored in this emp table as a in the temporary table space, and you just mention the block name what you mentioned for your with class, select star from emp details. Now it will fetch out all the relevant information for us. So that's how we can make use of this particular one. And similarly here if you observe the summary one, let us say you want to make use of a particular table query multiple times, then this is the preferred one to use it. Okay, now let's design one sample, then we can understand very easily. So I'll just mention with emp or employee details as, okay, select e dot employee ID, e dot first name, e dot last name from employees. Okay, where e dot department number, department ID in 60 and 90. Okay, 60 and 90. Now what I will mention, select star from employee DTLS, right? Okay, so there is somewhere it is showing mistake. Why? Yeah, because of table alias. Perfect. So we are trying to get all the employees. Okay, let's mention the department ID also here. Okay, now it is providing me 8 records. Now let us I want to display department name. What I can do? So here, what I can do is e dot employee ID, e dot first name, e dot last name. Similarly, e dot department ID, then e departments D, where 1 is equal to 1. You know what is 1 is equal to 1 now? D dot department ID. Okay. And also mention department underscore name. Okay. So this is how we can make use of with clause. So with clause is nothing but a placeholder for your query result, and we can make use of multiple, what you say, like multiple with clauses also. Okay. So far we just understood about how do we use subqueries, and checked we also checked out our exist clause, and we also saw the sample of with clause. Okay. Thank you.